family? Hoping that you are doing well. What's going on? My name is Elijah.
And I'm Josh.
And I want to welcome you all back to the conversation, home for raw, honest, and relevant discussion. We are in season 3, people, and we're going to keep it pushing and going. And today is going to be kind of on that tone of maturity.
Yes, sir.
We're maturing, Josh.
We are.
And I want to give you credit where credit is due, because I've seen a lot of growth in you, and this is just going to be another example of that. So I'm excited about today's discussion. Are you?
I'm ready.
All right. So today we're going to be talking about breakups, but we've come to the understanding of the fact that it's not just romantic relationships that suffer breakups, but it's also platonic friendships that can really suffer, the impact of a breakup, and if you don't know what platonic means, is when you're just simple friends. There's no pursuing of romantic, and romantic is when there is pursuit of love and building and not development. And at times those things can come to an end. And a lot of times it's not by force. It sometimes is unexpected. It sometimes is something that may take forever to do. It sometimes is a process that you may struggle with. But at the end of the day, we all go through it. And listen, the conversation is here to help you walk through it all. So the first thing, I guess that we're going to get into is kind of, when do you know that a relationship is over? And are there sure signs that it's ending? And if you start to see those signs, what do you do? I guess, Josh, go ahead. Hit it on the head, or? Yeah,
there are some signs that a relationship is coming to an end, but they're not universal.
That's so true.
They're not, because what might cause one relationship to end, or what is a deal breaker or a red flag for one couple that causes them to end their relationship, is cause for another couple to reevaluate. But the main thing, I think, that lets you know a relationship is ending is when you can't see yourself with that person in the future anymore. When you can't see yourself building with them. If I ask myself, based on what's going on in the relationship right now and what's going on in the relationship in the past, do I think we have a future? Do I think we can have a future? If the answer is yes, even if there's not a lot of confidence, I think that there's a chance.
Okay.
But if the answer is no, when you really don't believe that where you're heading, where you're going in the future, lines up with this other person, and you don't think it would be healthy for the two of you, that's when you know it's over. And there are some signs. There are a couple signs. And I definitely want to know what you think some of those signs are.
I think it's just, it's a feeling in a lot of times. You start to feel that something's off, if you're in a relationship, it can be one time, you're talking all the time, you're, communication, constantly conversating, and then all of a sudden it just stops. That can be a sign either that someone's going through a rough season, or they're not feeling that same way that they were in the beginning. With friendships, it can be that downgrade of communication, but it can also be in the form of where you just see different. I love how you said, if you can't see them in the future anymore. But that goes back to the Man in the Mirror series, where we were like, how do you see yourself?
Right.
Because you can't see the future unless you understand who you are, what you look like, what you are, and all those things.
In the present.
Right there in that moment.
Right.
And so to me, when you know a relationship is over, it develops as a feeling, but then there are sure signs that kind of, expose it or confirm it. Communication. If communication wasn't an issue before, but it becomes an issue, that's something to be observant of. If, for instance, there was one point where you all were able to really talk about everything, but you start to see that there spilling information elsewhere, that can be a sign that this relationship is not where you want it to be or where you would desire for it to be.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I think the other thing that we really want to do is understand that not all relationships are meant to be lifetime.
Yeah, not every relationship is a forever one.
Not
Some
everyone
of them
is
are just for a season.
right. And those seasons, you impact them and they impact you. If you have ever been in a relationship and you did not learn, you did not gain, you did not develop, that relationship was a waste of your time. It was a waste of your time because you didn't grow, you didn't develop, you didn't learn about yourself. You was just there for a good time. And that's not what you should be focused on when you're in a relationship with people. Whether it's platonic or romantic.
Yeah.
Yes, there is an attraction when it's a romantic relationship. Yes, there is a feeling of trying to build something with that person. But there's also a sense of, I'm hoping that you become better and that I become better as a result of us doing this, for our own growth and development. And so whenever another sign can be, if you're in that situation or you're in that friendship and you still feel as though you haven't grown, those are some signs to really reevaluate what's really going on, what is actually being talked about, what's being discussed, and really, what does the future look like? It's really having that outline of what it looks like. But I also want you to be careful with that too. Because a lot of times when we hear this information, when we hear these statements, we feel as though because someone isn't adding up to what we picture, they immediately have to go. Some people won't line up automatically with what you think they should. There's been this trend of throwing out the list for females to have when it comes to relationships.
Talk about it.
And different things like that. And it's not that the list is bad. It's good to have those expectations. But a lot of times, the people who are meant for you come in a different form of things that you didn't know you needed. What they lack is fleshly base level stuff, but what they can provide on a deeper level is something that you actually need. And I feel that's the same way with some friendships. Sometimes I know for me, Josh is annoying, right? Very annoying. But he's at the level of annoying where I need to be held accountable. He's annoying because Josh, when I sometimes talk about relationships and the way that I view certain things, Josh corrects me. It's annoying, but it's needed. It's not the form that I wanted, you know what I'm saying? But it's needed. And so I'm not going to cut off that friendship simply because he's pushing me to become better. So when you're listening to this episode and we're talking about friendships and when it's ending and all those signs, be cognizant of the fact that it's going to look different for each person.
Exactly. So we are in no way advocating for you to end your relationship just because you're hearing some things that we're saying. That might not be cause for you to break up.
Right.
We're not saying that. It's not universal. We want to talk in principle about some signs that a relationship might be ending. But please use wisdom. Please use wise counsel. Please pray about these things. I just want to offer that disclaimer. This is not an insinuation that everyone who's watching this needs to end a friendship or end a romantic relationship based on the content.
Right.
What we're saying is there are some signs that a relationship is not heading in the right direction and that might cause it to end. One real quick one that I wanted to bring up, a sign that a relationship is ending is when you are investing more in pleasing the person.
Oh, talk about that.
Just to make them happy.
Yes.
Rather than to make them healthy.
Right.
There's a big difference. And sometimes a lot of times that happens early on, or maybe if it's your first relationship, when we are in that honeymoon phase.
Yeah.
That's my new boo.
Yeah.
She makes me happy. You know how it is.
You make me happy.
I was about to I was thinking Usher and Alicia Keys. But
okay.
You see where I'm headed though.
Yeah.
When she looking real good, he's looking good. Y'all put each other in your Instagram bio. That early stage, and you want to make each other happy.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's because you're not taking care of you.
Ooh.
Or you don't know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
You found your identity in this relationship, and you start draining yourself.
Right.
To make them happy.
Yep.
It's not healthy.
Right.
The root of your relationship is not healthy when you're not feeding the relationship and giving to each other.
Right, yeah.
I'm investing time in you and I'm investing money in you that I'm not even doing for myself just to make you happy. Another sure sign, I'm going to say this real quick, is when the people around you who care for you notice that it's not healthy.
Yeah. And the people who notice it have to be the healthy people.
Right.
Not
people who love you and know you well enough to know something's wrong with you.
Not your jealous aunt or uncle.
I'm talking about
cousin.
your mom, though.
Ooh.
I'm talking about your mom.
And sometimes your mom can be that person.
Sometimes your mom can be.
But it's up to it's kind of on a point where you have to be observant of what you're letting in influence you. Yeah. And in that time, you know, as you're growing and pursuing, you're developing that foreshadow, that foresight, and you're understanding all those things. But have you ever needed to like end a relationship and didn't do it simply because of the fact it was too hard? And I'll explain a little bit more. Like, have you ever had to cut someone off or disassociate yourself with someone and you just didn't?
Because it was hard. Yes. And I'm a yes man. I am. I don't want to let anyone down.
Yeah.
And I felt like doing that would be letting people down. And this goes back to the previous question about sure signs, because it's not always that person is bad for you, that person was malicious, that person was wishing you harm, that person was manipulative. The person whose relationship with you is ending is not always your enemy. They're not always the villain.
Talk about that,
They're not always
man.
the villain. They might not be right for you in this season. And that was the case for me. And I'm not even talking about romantic relationships. I'm talking about some friendships that ended when I transferred schools, when I graduated from high school, even when I made the transition from being an underclassman to an upperclassman. Yeah. And it wasn't always a hard cutoff. Sometimes the relationship just kind of died. It just faded away. And that was because of where I was going. Let me just give you a quick example. Let's say you and I are going to the same restaurant and you ain't never been. I'm like, bro, just get in your car and follow me. So we on the phone, on Bluetooth, on the way there. Every time I turn left, you turn left. Every time I keep straight, you keep straight. And we go to that restaurant, we eat, we have a good time. That whole 20, 30-minute process, we were together because we both had to get to the same spot. We had to get to the restaurant. Yeah. But after we ate, you had to go back to your place and I had to go back to my place.
That's so good.
So now, it's not that you're bad for me. You didn't do anything wrong. It's not that I'm bad for you. But we're going some different places. Yeah. Now. And as a result, when I look behind me, I'm not going to see your car anymore because you went someplace. But here's the thing. It was a place that you needed to go. It was a good place. You had to get home. I had to get home. You had to go to work. I had to go to work. It wasn't necessarily bad, but that season is over now. And maybe for you, that season is graduating. Man. Maybe it's moving. Maybe
Josh,
it's something
that's
personal.
So good.
But that season is over. And as a result, the relationship is over. And it's going to be hard because we had this pattern. I keep talking about school because it's just real easy to talk about. Yeah. But for those of you who are over the age of 18, who've already graduated from high school, how many close friends in high school do you still have today? How many people who were your best friends in high school are still your best friend today? Hopefully a couple, maybe not any at all, maybe a lot. But you've changed since then. Your season in life has changed. You don't see them from 8 to 3 every day like you did. You don't have that same pattern. You don't do the same things. You don't ride the same bus. You don't go to the same lifting session. You don't go to the same play rehearsal, the same track meets. You do different things now. And it's the same with the friendship. Sometimes our patterns change, our habits change because our character is changing. Our passions are changing, our goals are changing. Yeah. And as a result, our friendships are going to change too. Just know that is not an indictment on your character. It's not even necessarily an indictment on their character.
Right. They're just in a different season. Right. And sometimes, to go back to the question, like, you don't often need to end those. They just end by themselves. Yeah. And for me, I have needed to end a lot of relationships in my life. As we've said, we're in a junior season of podcasting. Yeah. We're in our senior year of college. We're going into a new season of life. we're potentially getting married in a few years to people and starting our families.
That's right.
And there are just things that may not line up, that line up right now, that may not line up in 10 years or 3 years, to even be more true, to even be more real, and that's okay. But the thing you don't want to do is consistently hold on to those relationships simply because they're comfortable for you. You don't want to do that. It sometimes is okay to let stuff go, to really release them. Even if they're not communicating with you, don't be mad at them for that. Just be like, I'm beginning to understand. They've got a lot going on. They're in a new season, a new space, a new time in their life. So they're not able to give me as much as I'm demanding or needing. And that goes back to the friendship contract conversation, where we're expecting so much of people and they don't even know what we're expecting from them because we never communicated to them what our expectation was. And so sometimes you need to end the relationship simply because it's not good for you. And that can mean several different things. Are you not growing? Are you not developing? Are you not seeing yourself become better? And then it's hard because we don't want to lose people. We don't want to lose people who are attached to us. We don't want to lose people who we feel are good to us at this moment. And so we fight to hold on to them. But in that fighting, it becomes so much worse for you because you're forcing something that had an expiration date. It's like taking spoiled milk and saying, no, I just bought you. I need you. So I'm going to still drink you. And drinking from that spoiled milk is going to sicken my body. And so me consistently holding on to things when I should be letting them go does not help me. It hurts them and it hurts me even more. And so let's just say, you decide to cut them off. You're going through that season. You're like, I'm done with the spoiled milk. You're hurt. So now the question is like, how do you heal? What do you do? Like, I just cut off a friend I have for 5 years or something like that. How do I heal after that?
I remember in season 1, we did an episode called Ask Away.
Yeah.
Where we just reached out to our followers and asked them to submit questions and we answered them. One of the questions was, how do you heal from a breakup? I'm probably going to sound like a broken record because I've said this a couple different times, but you need to be patient with yourself.
Yeah.
Because it's a process. How do you heal from a breakup? How do you heal from a relationship ending? You mend your relationship with yourself. I remember when I was going through a season healing from a breakup. I don't even know if you remember this, but we had gone to church together. I was giving you a ride back. I think we was about to go get something to eat. And there was a song that came on. It was like a breakup song to me. It's not necessarily about a breakup, but to me it was. It was Bad Intentions by No Big Deal. And I started listening to it and you were like, nope, we're skipping this song. Nope. Josh, nope, we're not doing this. And I wasn't crying or weeping or nothing, but I was just vibing with the song and I was in my feelings. But I had somebody that I could confide in, and I didn't make you my garbage can. I didn't just...
Woo! No! Pause! Go back! Explain that! Because that's a true thing! Stop making people your garbage can, people!
You can't do that. Depending on your stage of life and the resources that you have available to you, it may behoove you to see a counselor, not just for that relationship ending, but just to go to therapy. I wasn't going to therapy, but I have a discipler. I have a mentor in my life, and I meet with him every week. And this is raw, right? We can be real.
We gonna be real.
So I'm not really a crier. I mean, I can be moved to tears by music. I'm unashamed to cry in church, but outside of church, I don't really cry that much. But I was doing some crying during this time, and I didn't let it out often. But when I did let it out, I let it out.
Yeah.
And I went to Sweetwater Coffee Shop on campus at Ohio State to meet with my discipler, and he asked me how I was doing, and I shed some tears that day.
Yeah.
But I had a resource, I had a safe place, and I had a confidant that I could talk through these things with.
Right.
And he didn't shame me for it.
Yeah.
He didn't shame me for it. So that's a big part of the process. Have somebody that you can talk to. Also have a release. Maybe that's listening to music. Maybe that's working out. But you need something constructive. Lying in bed and crying.
Eating ice cream.
In moderation, those things are good. And when I say in moderation, I'm mostly talking about the ice cream and just lying around all day. Because you do need to sleep and you may need to cry. But you need to have a constructive outlet too. That's the last thing I'm going to say. Yeah. So working on your relationship with yourself is good in finding an outlet for that. Because you have to know what makes you happy and what makes you healthy outside of another person.
Yeah.
And I really mean that in every sense, because the only person that I need to be whole is inside of me, in the person of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
So everything external that I'm doing and finding purpose in is gonna pass away.
Right.
It's gonna pass away. But I gotta live with me forever. So for me, it was writing poetry. I could pick up a pen, quite literally a pen. I wrote a lot of poetry on my phone. I picked up some drumsticks. I went to work. Every Wednesday, I was at Grace Polaris Church, banging on some drums. But that was a good outlet for me, and it was a creative outlet.
Yeah.
I wrote a lot of poetry. I got to share some of that poetry. But I had some outlets for me that helped me work on my relationship with myself, and then I had people that I could talk to about it. I think that's a big part of the process.
I agree, and I'm really big on not making people your garbage can. That's why I reacted a certain way, because what happens is, because let's go back to seasonal people, which are real. People are there for you in the season.
Yep.
You know, like you'll have a great, good high school bestie, but they may not be your lifetime bestie. That's okay. But you know, you don't dump your entire life on your high school bestie, you know, because they didn't ask for that. They didn't ask to hear about all that type of stuff. I mean, so just being cautious of that, because when you dump that on them, they now carry that weight. And unless they have a healthy way of dealing with that and dealing with that information, it's a lot.
Yeah.
You know, because I'll be honest, I was a couple people's garbage can for a while. And until I learned how to properly deal with that, how to properly unpack everything that comes with that responsibility and that job, it was very, very, very hard to carry, because you've got so much information and damage that a person went through, right? But you're also carrying yours. So you're now carrying other people.
And you weren't made to carry that weight.
And you weren't made to carry it. Man. So people are dumping.
I just dropped my phone, my bad.
People are dumping on you what they should have been given to the being who said, I can take your heavy loads because they're light.
Yeah.
So they're jumping it on people who were never meant to carry all of this stuff, and they're damaging them. And it's like, it's hard sometimes. Yeah. But to go to answer the question of like, how do you heal? What do you do? I'm a big believer of finding an outlet. Like for me, podcasting is an outlet. Creating is an outlet. Doing video edits is an outlet. All of these things are outlets for me to process things. I haven't necessarily had to deal with such a bad breakup in a romantic relationship, but I have in platonic relationships, and those are really hard. And so what's important is that, you know, when it comes down to it, you sit back, you reflect, and you kind of become thankful for the season that you had with them. And I know that's so crazy right now to really think about, but there's a part of thankfulness that comes with relationships. There's a thankfulness, that comes with that, because you realize and you think about, oh my goodness, all these great times I had and all of these moments of learning and growth that I experienced. I'm so thankful. You know, there's a point of thankfulness that comes from that. Yeah. And so I write out what I'm grateful for that came out of this friendship and this relationship, a gratitudeness, because I don't look at it in a negative light. What happens is when we break up with someone, we like, man, they suck, they trash, F them. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, at one point you did love them.
Yeah.
Let's be real here.
Let's talk about it.
Let's be real. At one point, you said, I love you to that individual. And if you said it and didn't mean it, that's different. But most of the time when you say those words, there's a part of your heart that you put inside of that word. Every time you say it, there's a part of your heart that flows with that word. And so it's a tough process, but when you heal from a breakup, there's a lot more that you can do in doing it, appropriately and for the best of you, to fit you.
That's key.
To prepare you for this next season that you're about to go into. So at the end of the day, transitions are a sign of your growth and development coming to a next stage.
That's right.
Anytime you go through a transition, to our wonderful podcast listeners, anytime you go through a transition, just know it's because you're going into a great place, a great space in your life. There's something new coming.
Yeah.
There's something great coming.
Yeah.
Right now I'm going through transition, and it's something great coming, which is grad school. I'm learning how to grow up as a man. I'm learning how to carry myself as a black man in a space that was not created for me. In a space where education, we built the buildings, but we're never let in.
Talk about that, please.
I'm now at a place where I'm in these buildings, in these ivory towers.
That's right.
Where my people built, but they didn't build it for them. They built it for other people to learn and be educated, while they were still in shackles and in chains. Most of these colleges were established and built before 1865.
Which means what? Slavery was still legal.
Slavery was still legal. And I don't care how you put it, no matter what part of the country you're in, north or south. Slaves were real, and they were cheap labor.
Right.
So for me, I'm going into a transition, and I'm getting to a place where I'm beginning to walk into. I have this hoodie that says, "I am my ancestors' wildest dream." Because in their wildest dreams, they could have thought about that. But to get back on point, I think to the healing of that is processing everything that you went through, putting together a list of thankfulness for it. And I know it's hard, but it helps you process it and be reminded of the fact that at one point you did love that person, whether it was a friend or relationship. There was love in your heart that you had for them, and it doesn't just disappear overnight. No matter how mad or upset they make you, there's going to be a point in your heart where you're like, I still love them, I still care for them. And to kind of close it out, I guess, in a way, is there anything that you wish you knew about relationships that you would share with someone who's listening or watching today?
Yeah. 2 quick things. But first, I just want to say I really appreciate your insight that you just shared about transitions. Because that's a sign of maturity. And what you said about being grateful, I dropped the ball. I literally dropped my phone because I had this quote on my phone, this real quick quote that I wanted to read. But it's so key because gratitude and anxiety can't live in the mind at the same time.
Ooh, talk about that.
And for you to realize that there was something to be grateful for in that friendship, in that relationship that's ending, is a sign of maturity. So I just wanted to commend you for that.
Thank you, bro.
And thank you for being a brother to me when I've needed you in times of painful transition.
Yeah.
My brother. I also want to thank my brother, my fraternity brother, Trent Marion. That was my mentor, my discipler that I met with on those days that were rough in that time. And it was during those days that I came across this quote that I wanted to quickly share from Jackie Hill Perry about relationships. And that's the first of 2 things I want to share about what I've learned. One is that they don't all last forever. They're seasonal. There is still something for you to get in that season. Just because a relationship doesn't last forever doesn't mean it was bad and doesn't mean it was a waste of time. There are toxic relationships. There are unhealthy relationships. There is something you learn from those too. I'm not saying see the bright side and ignore the trauma. What I am saying is even with the trauma, even with the things that have gone wrong, and we're going to acknowledge those, you are better now coming out of that. You didn't need to go through the trauma to become the person that you are now. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
What I am saying is, on the other side, you are better exiting that season than you were before that season.
Yeah.
Jackie Hill Perry says it like this: not every friendship is a forever one, and that's okay. Life is just like that. Seasons and people change, and with that, so do our relationships. Get clarity and pursue peace, but be willing to embrace the change.
Wow.
With appreciation for what was and love for the person who still is.
Wow.
In that season of what was, you were growing with someone. Now you're growing apart from someone, but you are still growing.
Yeah.
And for that reason, this is the second thing I want to say, it's worth it. Relationships are worth it. Maybe you're listening right now and you're not sure relationships are right for you. And when I say relationships, I'm talking about friendships as well. Because a lot of us have been hurt by friends that took advantage of us and said they would be there but really weren't. That were friends with us because they needed something from us but didn't give something to us.
Man.
And so you're thinking, I'm just better off by myself. I'm just better off alone. You weren't meant to be alone.
Yeah.
That's not healthy. Relationships are worth it. They will not always bring you happiness. They will not always work out the way that you would like them to. And you can't necessarily avoid or protect yourself from being disappointed. But relationships are worth it. And you are worthy of being loved. You are worthy of being supported. We all need friends. We all need people in our corner that push us into our purpose. So those are just the two quick things I want to say. One, relationships are not always forever. Sometimes they're seasonal. But two, they are worthwhile.
Yeah. I guess the thing that I want to say is be intentional about what you're expecting from that relationship, whether it's platonic or romantic. Be intentional about it. If I want a romantic relationship and I am intentional about building something, make that clear. If I am a friendship, I'm really big about communicating of what it is. And so I wish that I would have known the importance of saying that up front and just being honest with someone.
Yes.
You know, our generation is so big on honesty, but we really want a form of honesty that still lacks the truth.
I had to learn that the hard way.
Like, we really do. Like, we want it to seem honest and authentic, but just don't give us the whole truth. And that's really sad. But I want that. Like, I want the truth. Tell me the truth. Don't sugarcoat with me. And more importantly, don't go to 16 other people telling them what you really want to tell me.
Man.
Like, just tell me.
That's
I'm
good.
not going to be mad or anything, you know. But I wish I would have learned that. I wish I would have knew that. I wish, because I was that person that would go around telling everybody what I was thinking instead of communicating with that person. Like, if I have a beef with Josh,
I need to tell Josh.
why am I telling my Uncle Tony? Tony can't help me. Tony don't really know Josh. If I got a problem with Josh, I should talk to Josh. If I got a problem with my girlfriend, I should talk to my girlfriend. If I have a problem with my wife, I should talk to my wife. If I got a problem with them both, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
You a mess. You a mess.
But the point is, and I hope you really hear me, is to really communicate what that is. That's something I wish I would have known. And I hope that from this episode you all take that it's important to understand relationships and also understand that it's going to be a process to get back, or don't even go back. Don't go back to the place that you're comfortable with, but take this season and this time to propel you forward. Let it push you. My God.
You don't need to push me. You don't
let
need to
it
actually push
let
me.
it push you. Don't let that breakup keep you in this box. Make it force you to break out of it. Let it force you to grow. Let it force you to develop. Let it force you to self-evaluate yourself. It's where I'm like, Elijah really used to really love to watch stuff until late at night because he would talk to people and be up late at night and be doing things that he probably shouldn't have been doing. But now that I'm in the season where I'm not doing those things, I'm now reevaluating and say, maybe I should read a book. Now I'm learning. I'm developing. I'm growing. What happened in that last season only prepared me to move into a place that I was really meant to be. And so listen, in this episode, we talked about breakups. We talked about the process of it all. But it's processing all of that and taking your time with it and not rushing it. Not forcing yourself to go beyond what you were really ready and prepared for. And so that's what I would say. That is my piece of advice.
That's wisdom. I appreciate your insight, bro. I'm glad you're learning, and I trust that the listeners are learning from this as well.
Yeah.
So for those of you watching, I want to say thank you. We're wrapping up this episode, but not to be super sentimental and mushy-gushy, but I'm glad that this relationship, this friendship that we've built, has lasted for more than a season.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you, man.
It literally has lasted almost 3 seasons now.
You think you're funny. As we wrap up today, though, thank you all for listening. Please remember that a conversation begins
and ends
with an open ear.
Listen, I want you to like, rate, share, subscribe. Like,
hey,
rate,
yup,
share,
and what?
Subscribe.
Yup, I said
like,
yup,
rate,
and share,
and
subscribe.
Yes,
sir.
Like and rate and share and subscribe. Like and rate and share and subscribe. Like. All right, we'll see y'all next time. Peace.